Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming out. We're excited to be back in Okaloosa County, and we're excited to have another great announcement that's building off a lot of the success that we've had, particularly over the last couple years, in terms of providing good workforce education and letting people know that there's a lot of great options to be able to succeed in life that does not require you to go to a traditional four-year university and go $100,000 in debt. And so we're seeing here today a continued fulfillment of that vision. Joining me today, Education Commissioner of Florida, Manny Diaz. We also have Dr. Devin Stevenson, of course, the president of Northwest Florida State College. We have Randy Taylor, president and co-founder of Shelton Trucking. We have Trey Williams, president and CEO of Fleet Force Driving School. We have Dr. Kathleen Plinsky, president of Valencia College in Central Florida, also from Valencia. Joe Batista's with us. Lacey Hoffmeyer with Broward College is here. Michelle Denard, president and CEO of Career Source Florida. Michelle Burns, executive director of Career Source Okaloosa Walton. Richard Miles, a CDL student here at Northwest Florida State College, who you'll hear from. We have our next senator, Jay Trumbull, is here. We have your representative, Pat Maney, is here. We have our senior chancellor for the state of Florida, Henry Mack, is here. And I'd also like to recognize the Florida Trucking Association. They're not here today, but they have really worked hard to generate more folks through different types of apprenticeships and other types of programs. They've had a lot of applications. When people go through, they have like 100% placement rate when you're talking about things in this industry. And it's so very, very important. I think we've seen over the last year and a while, actually, but now a year and a half, almost 2 years, the problems you can have if you don't have strong supply chains, if you're not putting an emphasis on things that really matter. One of the things that we did in Florida when you had all those ships sitting there off the coast of California, we said, we're open 24/7 on our ports. You should bring more ships. So they've rerouted ships to Florida that would have gone to California. In fact, we had a shipping company based in Long Beach that moved its whole company, North American Operations, to Jacksonville because they know they can do business in Florida. So we were happy to set that. And I remember when it was backed up in California, they're like, well, maybe they'll start, going to 24/7. And I'm like, we always do 24/7 in Florida. I mean, this is something that's very, very important. So we were very cognizant of that. We've actually, as difficult as it is with a lot of the stuff going on with the national economy, and we have made a positive impact, and our freight and the stuff coming in to the ports in Florida, I mean, is up significantly since we engaged in this last year. And so we're proud of that. We also, last year in particular, well, when I became governor, I said, we need to do better on workforce education. We were in the bottom half of states, and our goal was by 2030, Florida be #1 in workforce education. Why? Well, because I saw what was going on with the economy. You had some students that were told you have to go to college, otherwise you can't be successful. So they'd end up going to some fourth-tier private college, taking out $100,000 in loans, and then ended up in a job they could have had at a high school. Well, that's a millstone around the neck, and it's not really producing an avenue for you to really succeed. There's nothing magical about a piece of paper. It either represents something that you can then offer in the economy or it doesn't. And I think for too long, a lot of these universities have made a fortune off this student debt. The kids go deeper and deeper into debt. They make a fortune. What does that lead to? Better education? No, it leads to administrative bloat. It leads to spending money on a lot of things that don't even have anything to do with the core academic mission. And so that's just been happening for quite some time. So that's not good. Now, one way we've dealt with that in Florida is our state universities. I've not allowed them to raise tuition. So there's been no tuition increases since I've been governor. So you can go to a state university in Florida, average I think it's like $6,300 for in-state. You're not going to be able to find that very many places in this country. And of course, we have things like the Bright Future Scholarship where you can get all that paid for, or even a lot of it paid for. But even if you don't do any of that, at that level, people can work part-time jobs. I worked when I was in college, to make ends. So it is absolutely attainable for people to go to four-year university in Florida without going deep into debt, and that's really regardless of your family circumstances. So we're proud of that. We think that that's something that's very important, and I'm a big believer in higher education, but I'm not a big believer in making higher education so expensive that people have to mortgage their entire future to be able to do it. So we've led on that in Florida, and we're proud of that. But I also just understand, if you look at the economy, there's a lot of demand for traditional skilled trades and other things that require different types of training than maybe what you would get at the university. Not everybody is going to be coding or involved in tech or some of this other stuff. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do, but the idea that traditional occupations are somehow not going to be necessary because of technology, that's not true. I mean, you need to be able to bring goods to market. You need to be able to do a lot of important things. So we launched our workforce initiative. We've been able to expand apprenticeships. We've been able to support our state colleges, and we've encouraged both the high schools with the school districts and the state colleges to be working very closely with businesses in their community so that they're training people in ways that are going to be very much in demand in those communities. And you see it in different parts. Obviously, Northwest Florida, I mean, you've got great footprints with military and some of those. You see similar things like on the Space Coast of Florida with the space industry and how people can go right in for high school into some of that manufacturing, which is great. So we want to continue to do that. The commercial driver's license was something that we saw as needed to be addressed in Florida. When I became governor, the state of Florida, through all of our different training programs, was producing about 800 new commercial drivers a year, which was not adequate for what we needed. So we launched really a significant initiative last year. We were doing things. We did stuff Northwest Florida State College with the mechanics, the diesel mechanics, to be able to help, because that's a key part of it, but also the people getting the driver's license. We've done that around the state. And so we've now we went from about 800 a year to over 2,000 a year up till today. But the good news about today is we have more demand than even that. We more than doubled what the state had been doing, and yet we have more demand, and so we're able to meet that demand here with a really, really exciting initiative. And if you think about what's going on with the economy, the average salary for new truck drivers is higher, much higher than the median salary nationwide. And you have some companies like Walmart that are doing six figures right off the start for people that are driving trucks. And so we think it's something that offers great opportunity for people in the state of Florida to be able to earn a really solid income. But also, it's important for our state's economy to make sure that we have the logistics capability in place to power an economy which is continuing to grow. I mean, I think if you look over the last few years, the amount of investment and migration into Florida has really been without peer, I think, anywhere in the country. And we've probably had more migration of income and wealth into our state in the last couple years than any state has had over a similar period of time in modern American history. And so we have opportunities with the economy here. People want to be here. We've got a good environment. There's more that we need to do, of course, but you got to have these core functions being able to meet the needs. And so today's announcement, I think, is really, really important, because the next step of our initiative is an investment of $8.2 million to expand commercial driver's license training across 5 different state colleges in the state of Florida. So we're going to do it in all parts of the state. We're going to have Broward College down in Southeast Florida is going to get $2.6 million. They will do 250 additional students a year. Northwest Florida State College will get $1.5 million to expand its existing program. And so with that money, they will be able to train an additional 250 students per year. Valencia College down in Central Florida will get $1.3 million to train an additional 200 students a year. Daytona State College in Volusia County will get $1.3 million to train an additional 200 students per year. And then the State College of Florida will receive over $1 million to expand its existing program to 300 students a year. And so this is something that is going to make a huge impact on opportunity. We're happy that there was a great response to what we've already done. We're happy that there's a lot of people that see the value in pursuing this line of work. And we're happy we were able to expand up to this point, but we have an opportunity to do better. So we are doing that today. And now as part of this initiative, I'm directing $500,000 in the governor's discretionary Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds to be used through local workforce development boards to assist students with a variety of education-related costs like tuition, travel to and from class, and the cost of certification tests. When you combine this announcement with our previous CDL awards going back to October of 2021, just in the last 2 years, we've been able to expand by over 2,500. So we're now going to have almost 3,500 students that we're going to be able to produce every year in the state of Florida. We were under 1,000 before we did this. But that's not all. We have another announcement as well. So I'm a big believer that you learn more by doing than you learn by sitting in a lecture hall and listening to some professor bloviate. I think it's true. And I think people are finding that all sectors of the economy, including the corporate world, they get these college graduates and they're like, okay, they don't really know anything about anything we're doing, so they've got to train them as well. And so the best way to learn is to do. And so I'm a big believer in apprenticeships. And we've been able to expand apprenticeships dramatically over the last 2.5 years. And we're going to be able to do even more today. So, and what I told my folks is there's all these different things. Like we have Job Growth Grant Fund, that's my governor's kind of fund for workforce and infrastructure, and we've used that strategically, and it's been very good. There's also sometimes there'll be federal funds, sometimes there's state programs. So we said, okay, I don't want these things in a silo. We want workforce, we want apprenticeships. So let's get resources together, pool it, and let's make a big impact. And so that's what we're doing today with our apprenticeship grants. We're going to be awarding almost $12 million to start or expand 40 registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So this funding is through a variety of sources, including Florida's DOE's Pathways to Career and Opportunities Grant. They're going to enroll 3,200 apprenticeships and pre-apprentices and support over 50 businesses in the year. Now this will not be limited to truck driving. This will be include occupations like heavy equipment drivers, electricians, construction, industrial technicians, and fiber optic technicians. And so now not every one of those is necessarily a part of the supply chain, but all of those are vital functions in an economy that is working. So these apprenticeships are going to make a huge impact. And the thing is you go through these apprenticeships, you're not going to end up $100,000 in debt, and you're almost assuredly going to have employment opportunities. And right now, the state of Florida, our unemployment rate is about 1% less than the nation as a whole. We're 2.7, the nation's like 3.6 or 3.7. And so we've outpaced the nation on almost every major economic indicator over the last 2 years. And part of the reason is because we kept the state open when many of these other places were shutting down and really ruining opportunities for tens of millions of people across the United States. A lot of the small businesses in states like California and these other states, they had a body blow, and this was not something that they could recover from. Here in Florida, a lot of those small businesses have never done better. Is because they knew with me at the helm, they were going to be able to operate. They were going to be able to make decisions, and you could take that to the bank. And also playing into that is the fact that we made sure that we had the schools open when many of the places locked them out for so long and really damaged opportunities for so many young people. And, a lot of the politicians that would lock down schools and keep kids out, they would all usually send their own kids to in-person education, maybe a private tutor, maybe a private school. So the burden really fell on lower and middle income families, a lot of working class single moms, for example. What are you going to do? You got to make money to put food on the table, and yet you're saying your kid is not going to be able to go to school. So it was really, really bad decisions that were made, I think, throughout this country. And I think one of the reasons why we've done much better is because we were kind of a refuge of sanity when the world was going crazy with all this stuff, and especially in Northwest Florida. So we're excited about today's announcement. I mean, you look at the most recent economic numbers, inflation actually went up 0.1%. From people thought it was going to go down, because what's happened is China is still locking down incredibly, just brutal lockdowns. So the world demand for oil and energy is a little artificially lower than I think what it would be. So that actually brought the inflation numbers down. But even with that, you still had an increase overall because food is going up tremendously, healthcare, all these different things. And, you know, it's a result of when you go in and you print trillions of dollars, of course, and while you're printing trillions of dollars and inflating the currency, you're restricting production and supply of key things like energy, kneecapping the energy industry. Of course, you're going to get inflation when you combine that toxic brew of policies. And so what is their response, and what are they trying to do to quote, reduce inflation? They pass a bill that they're calling the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to increase inflation. And it's not designed to service the best interests of the average American. In fact, they are marshaling 87,000 additional IRS agents that they're going to unleash on the public. Are those IRS agents going to go after limousine liberals in Hollywood? No. They're going to go after small business people. They're going to go after a handyman. They're going to go after an Uber driver. They're going to go after people that they know are going to be much more difficult to defend themselves against these audits. So I think it was reprehensible that they put those 87,000 IRS agents in that bill. And I think every single member of Congress who voted for those IRS agents should be required to be audited every year by the IRS. And then they're trying to do a $1 trillion taxpayer assumption of student loan debt, which is going to drive even President Obama, one of his main economists, said it's like pouring gasoline on the fire when you talk about another $1 trillion that's going to be, the taxpayers going to be on the hook of. And, you know, we have somebody, you know, somebody's like a waitress, you know, she may have made different decisions, and now it's going to be $6,000 for every taxpayer potentially if it ends up being $1 trillion. So how is that fair to her? How is it fair to somebody that maybe went through one of these programs? It didn't go into a lot of debt. Now they're being told they have to face more inflation and maybe pay more of this. And the thing about it is, you know, there are definitely some students that have gone through and had excessive debt, but the colleges should be on the hook for this, not the taxpayer. The colleges have benefited from these loans and all this money that floods into their system on the backs of their students. So if you are producing students with six-figure debt, and then they have degrees that doesn't allow them to pay off the debt, then you're failing in your mission. So why doesn't Biden want the colleges to be on the hook for this? Some of these colleges have billions of dollars in endowment, and they should be funding all of this. And so I think it's going to increase inflation. I don't think it's constitutional, of course, because you can't do this unilaterally. But I also think it's not addressing the underlying cause of why we're in the situation that we're in. We're in the situation that we're in because colleges have an incentive for students to take out as much debt as possible. And they have an incentive to have someone take 6 years to complete a four-year program rather than 4, because they get 2 extra years of tuition payments. And that's been happening for years and years and years, and nobody seems to want to do anything about it. And that's why in Florida we limit tuition. We don't let them raise tuition. You should be able to produce an education that people can afford, and we're not going to ever shrink from that. And I know there's others, that have wanted to raise tuition, but we don't believe in that, and we're much better off as a result. And you have opportunities, and you can do things, but good grief, it's basically bailing out these colleges, and I think that that's wrong. So affordability is important. Doing things that are high value is important, and I can think of a few things right now that are more high value than our announcements here today. I think it's going to make a really significant impact. I think you're going to be graduating these students that are there. They're going to end up making a very good income right off the bat, and if you stick with this thing, I mean, man, you have great opportunities. It's not an easy job to do. I know I wouldn't want to be doing one of those things. You make one wrong thing. I mean, it's tough. It's not easy to do. There's long hours, and I am glad we've got some of these great service stations in Florida that have come up. We have Buc-ee's over in Daytona Beach. You guys should try that. We have others that are big, Busy Bee, all these other ones. It makes a difference to be able to have some place to get a little bit of respite, but it's not an easy job, and it is high demand, and it does require significant skills. And so when those factors are there, the incomes go up, and you have an opportunity. And I know these companies really, really want to hire more and more people, even with all the economic turmoil we're seeing from Washington, even with all the crushing inflation, they want to be hiring people. So we're excited about that. And we're going to hear from some folks here who are involved in this, and then I will make a few other comments. So, okay, Education Commissioner Manny Diaz.
Thank you, Governor. And it's clear that under Governor DeSantis' leadership, Florida leads in education. We're ranked #1 in the country in our higher education system, and that's a product of the leadership of Governor DeSantis. And while being ranked #1, he's kept our tuition low so our students in Florida can actually afford to go to college without being saddled with debt. On top of that, last week we were rated #1 in educational freedom by the Heritage Foundation. And again, the leadership of this governor who understands all this. But he made it a goal that by 2030, Florida would be #1 in workforce education. And that's because the governor understands that you have to provide creative pathways. Not everybody's going to go to college. Not everybody should go to college and get saddled with debt for a degree they can't use. And this is an example right here of putting these state dollars to work and providing programs that are actually going to have these young folks go straight into the field where they're making possibly 6 figures right away and be able to live productive lives here in the state of Florida. The economy in Florida is so prosperous because of the decisions that Governor DeSantis has made to keep us open, to have our kids back in school in person right away and keep our schools open, but also to use common sense when spending these these state dollars in these programs. As the governor mentioned before, you can see that they're in sync when we have these dollars, and then instead of having them scattered all over the place, they make sense to create these apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships across construction, aerospace, information technology, truck driving, and this is an example right here. Our state college system is very nimble. So I want to thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership and continuing to make Florida #1 across the board. Thank you, Governor.
All right, Randy Taylor, President and co-founder of Shelton Trucking.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, to follow these two gentlemen, I got a job. You guys hang in there with me. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for what you do for our industry and for this state. We're just looking forward to the many more years you have and the things we're going to see, how we're going to prosper. So thank you so much. As he said, thank you. I'm with Shelton Trucking, and we're located in Alta, Florida. Probably some of y'all might not know where Alta is. I didn't either for a long, long time, but we found it. And we are a part of another trucking company, so combined we have over 4,000 drivers on the road. Now I'm proud to say that 600 of those 4,000 drivers live in the state of Florida. So Florida is a very, very, very important part to our industry and our company on there. Also, Alex called me 2 days ago, and she said, you got to get to Niceville, Florida, represent the Florida Trucking Association. I am on the board. And so she gave me maybe less than 36 hours to get my speech ready to get here. So y'all bear with me. But one thing I did, and I do want to recognize, whenever Casey called me yesterday from your office, and he was telling me all the things, I said, look, I'm going to bring a lot of drivers with me. So you'll see the guys on the end there, my backup. That's my Shelton folks over there. They came to support me. And, hey, they are the backbone of our industry. I wouldn't have a job, and we would all be without a lot of things that's important to us if we did not have these guys out there working and delivering freight every day. And more important, my wife's here. She's part of my team, and she's here to help me in case I get lost during my speech here. We are one of the largest employers in Calhoun County, Florida. You know, and I know firsthand, I was telling some people before the meeting, I've been in trucking now, transportation, for 45 years. When I graduated college, I went into transportation. I'm an old man, so I've seen a lot. I've gone from the days that we had drivers' names and phone numbers in our desk drawer that we could pull out if we needed somebody on a truck, to days you can't get a driver in a truck. So you guys going through the school, congratulations. You got a great career ahead of you, and what the governor is doing today will help move that on forward. As I said, the trucking industry is the backbone of the economy. It connects everything in the industry, and every sector is connected some way in trucking. You know, the rails were they're considering going on strike. I heard we avoided that this morning, which is a great thing. But guess who was going to move the freight if the trains sit? And here we are. We need drivers. We need drivers on our trucks. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But our drivers are the heart of our business. Governor DeSantis understands this. His work at championing the professional truck drivers and making the public more aware of the high-paying career opportunities out there in the industry, it's been a game changer for us. You know, a driver, if he works and does what he's supposed to do, he can make equivalent to what a vice president at an organization makes now. You know, he's not sitting in a cubicle either or sitting in an office. He's out on the road and he's working. And we're flatbeds, and our drivers work. They're continuously securing loads, making sure everything is safe on there, because safety is our number one thing. We're seeing a lot more interest in people wanting to come into the driving force. We're seeing a lot more women that are coming in. As a matter of fact, the last report I had, 13% of our driver force now is made up by women. And that is a great, great thing. And, you know, I see people, when they see a lady driving this 18-wheeler truck making a turn, everybody's in a full panic. But I tell you what, hey, they make better turns than I would, for sure. I'm not going to say my drivers, but they make better turns than I do. So it is great to see that. Funding like this will increase accessibility and capacity for the schools to train our next generation of drivers, and that's what we're doing. The shortage of drivers is one of our biggest factors contributing to the supply chain chaos that we all have. You go in the grocery store, things are missing off the shelf. It's because we're not able to get the product to the consumer side in time because of the shortage of drivers that we have out there. Currently, we need 80,000 drivers. Now, this is United States wide, 80,000 drivers just to meet the demand that we have out there right now. If someone called me to pick up a load of freight today and deliver it tomorrow, I could get it there by Monday now, you know, if I'm lucky. That's what we're up against on there. We do believe that this shortage will continue, and it's proposed that we could be, by the year 2028, short 160,000 drivers in our driver force right now. The biggest generation of drivers that we had, they're retiring. In the next 10 years, the baby boomers, which is what I am, we're retiring. We're going home, and we're going to enjoy life. And but we're predicting there's 1.1 million drivers that will be retiring in the next 10 years. Okay, for us to just maintain where we're at, that means in the next 10 years, we've got to hire 110,000 new drivers every year. Where are we going to get them from? We're going to get them from the schools like this, the training and the support that the governor is giving to the schools. So it is great for us. I went back and I was looking, preparing for the speech, just to give y'all some numbers. And I'm gonna try not to go on. They accuse me sometimes of being like a Southern Baptist, want to talk forever, but I'm gonna try to hurry up through it. But our company this year in our budget, we budgeted to hire 2,400 drivers in our company this year because of retirement, people, finding other jobs and things like that. So we suffer just like anybody else. We've got signs everywhere looking. Went back and we looked at what our average cost was to hire a driver and get him in a seat. It's anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 per driver that you hire. So I'm going to use our company somewhere around $9,000 that it costs us to actively hire a driver, get him in, get him trained, orientated, and put him in a seat. Okay, and we're going to hire 2,400 this year at $9,000 apiece. That equates to a cost of just our company of $21.6 million that we're going to spend in hiring drivers. That's how important the drivers are and the situation we're in. So, and I went back and I looked, just taking an operating ratio of a 95 on there, that means to cover that $21.6 million, we've got to produce $435 million just to cover that one cost. That's not talking about my fuel, my insurance, my tractors, everything else. Just that one cost, I've got to produce $435 million. So it's a lot of money. Here in the free state of Florida, we're seeing record numbers of new residents and tourists coming, as the governor talked about. And, trucking supplies the Floridians with their basic necessities, emergency supplies, and just about everything else. If you touch it, a truck driver brought it to you. Our slogan is, your tomorrow is on a truck today. And that's what we believe. Your tomorrow is on a truck today. As our state economy continues to boom, we will need more drivers. We've got to have them. So, Governor, on behalf of myself and the Florida Trucking Association, thank you for always listening to us and for your commitment to help one of the most critical industries in your state continue surviving on there. Thank you so much, Governor.
And one of the reasons I think that we are a great place for trucking is, as you remember last year, they wanted to force everybody, but including truck drivers, they wanted to force COVID shots or else lose their jobs. And we said that is not going to fly in Florida. They can make their own choices. And we were able to protect not just people in this industry, our cops, our firefighters, nurses, you name it. We also banned any school district from forcing COVID shots on students. That's a parent's choice, and honestly, most kids are fine. And they want to, if it weren't for people like me, they would want to mandate these new boosters that are coming out, which weren't even tried. Fauci says we don't have time for a clinical trial. Okay, well, why should that be forced on anybody then? I mean, give me a break. They did 8 mice, and then they're going to try to force you to take this. And so this whole idea of forcing this on workers, forcing vaccine passports to where you can't even operate in society unless you're constantly showing your medical papers, that's wrong. And it's not going to be allowed in Florida as long as I'm here. And I do think that it would have devastated our trucking industry, because a lot of these guys that are preparing to retire, that mandate alone may have been enough for them to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to mail it in, and they may have done that. And so I think that was really, really important, and we're going to continue to do that. We have Trey Williams, President and CEO of Fleet Force Driving School.
Good morning. I think I've got the good angle here with you guys facing the sun, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. I want to thank Governor DeSantis and his administration for allowing me to give you an update from the front lines of CDL training here in Florida, and also for his commitment to workforce development throughout the state. At Fleet Force, our mission is to empower drivers, strengthen companies, and build communities. That mission is something we take very seriously and to heart every day that we're training the new generation of drivers here in Florida. This investment, this consortium, and the apprenticeship programs that the governor was talking about will indeed empower drivers. It will empower the dislocated worker who was deemed unessential during COVID shutdowns and moved his family to Florida, where common sense and facts prevailed during the pandemic. He and others like him have created a tidal wave of new Floridians who came here looking for a hand up, not a handout, who entrusted their families, their futures, and their livelihoods to this administration. And today is a shining example of why they chose Florida and a confirmation that they made the right choice. So this investment will also help Fleet Force strengthen companies. The Fleet Force team is in the trenches of this workforce battle, where we strive every day to operate at the speed of need. Despite our best effort, Florida currently has 5,000 fewer professional drivers than they did just a few years ago. And that is due in large part to inadequate capacity for CDL training. So this investment will ensure that the family-owned trucking companies, who are our corporate partners at the Florida Trucking Association and others, will not see their family's legacy obliterated by inflation and ironically named short-sighted legislation. Instead, Fleet Force now has the capacity to operate at the speed of need. So again, Governor, thank you for helping us strengthen companies throughout the state. And finally, this consortium and these apprenticeship programs will help Fleet Force complete the last part of our mission, which is to build communities. More than 80% of the communities in these United States depend solely on trucking for their goods. Currently, as my associate said earlier, there are 80,000 empty trucks, vacant jobs available across America, and more than 25% of those vacancies are here in Florida. The fastest growing counties in Florida have recently seen 20 to 30% increases in trucking-related jobs. And without this funding for the new consortium and apprenticeship programs, delivery of goods and raw materials to those communities would grind to a halt. So, Governor, thank you for helping Fleet Force build communities across the state and across the nation. I'd like to talk for just a second about our students. Fleet Force students are the future of Florida's trucking, transport, and logistics industry. And we are proud that our student population has double the national average for female enrollment. We hit almost 1 in 5 out of all of our new students, which is double the 13%. We are also more than 60% minorities. These students represent what's best in all of us. They have a desire to learn and grow and better themselves.
They shut down. We lost our jobs. That was our livelihood. And I was looking for something that wouldn't close or shut down. And they mentioned the ladies from Career Sources. Well, what about CDL? I'd had brothers that was truck drivers. You know, I was always interested in it, but didn't pay enough. Now the pay is up there. You can make whatever amount of money you want to if you want to go do that specific trucking job. So you can provide for your family. And thank you for the grant money. Appreciate it. We got in touch with our ladies at Career Source. They got in touch with Miss Penny and Miss Tammy, arranged all the stuff. We didn't have to do anything except show up and go do the list that they told us we had to have done, and then show up for class. I've been here 4 weeks. I've learned a tremendous amount in 4 weeks, and I can't wait to graduate. And on a personal note, when you finish your next term as governor, I expect to hear hail to the chief before you come in the room.
All right. Well, we're excited, and you see how it impacts, you know, from a business perspective, but all the way from a student perspective. And you know, you have issues. You know, some businesses don't do well all the time. Some people need these jobs. We want to have all these opportunities for folks, and so we're really proud that we're putting an emphasis on it. I think it's going to make a big difference. Okay. Any questions back there? Yes, sir. We take what's happening at the southern border very seriously, unlike some, and unlike the President of the United States, who has refused to lift a finger to secure that border. And you've had millions and millions of people pouring across illegally, record amount of fentanyl coming into our country. It is absolutely killing Americans in record numbers. Of course, you have criminal aliens, but just the sheer number of people, it's not the way you run a country. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that come across. Where do they want to end up? A lot want to come to, because everyone wants to come to Florida. And so we've worked on innovative ways to be able to protect the state of Florida from the impact of Biden's border policies. And so that's involved a number of things. We've had different operations in the Panhandle where we've stopped human smugglers. There have been criminal charges brought. There have been drugs seized. There have been a whole bunch of things. But yes, if you have folks that are inclined to think Florida is a good place, our message to them is we are not a sanctuary state, and it's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction. And yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you to be able to go to greener pastures. Well, I would just note, Biden would fly people in the middle of the night, dump them all across this country. There was no warning on any of this. They're doing it, and they're farming people out all around. They're also doing things like, so, you know, we've had people right on the border helping, working ways. They will dump in San Antonio, and these people have, you know, they're basically just there, and a lot of them end up migrating to different parts, but it's harder for us to stop a onesie-twosie coming into Florida, because I don't know if you're just driving a normal car and you have one or two people in it who are illegal. You can't determine that on the front end. You can do if there's large movement or caravans or buses, but we haven't had that, partially because Governor Abbott is busing to New York City and D.C. And all those people in D.C. and New York were beating their chests when Trump was president, saying they were so proud to be sanctuary jurisdictions, saying how bad it was to have a secure border. The minute even a small fraction of what those border towns deal with every day is brought to their front door, they all of a sudden go berserk, and they're so upset that this is happening. And it just shows you, you know, their virtue signaling is a fraud, okay? They are supporting policies that are just frankly indefensible. It is not defensible for a superpower to not have any control over the territory of its country, over the borders of its country. And he inherited a situation where you didn't have this happening. And yes, we needed to build the wall. There was more that we needed to do. He reversed the Trump policies, knowing what would end up happening. And you know, one of the reasons why we want to transport, because obviously it's expensive if people are coming here. It taxes social services and all these other things. And so if we can do in a sanctuary, well, then the chance that they come to Florida goes down dramatically. But it is also the case that, you know, every community in America should be sharing in the burdens. It shouldn't all fall on a handful of red states. And so they're now doing it. Now they have to decide, okay, this is a policy you've supported to have an open border. You don't like it as much. When you get just a small amount compared to what these folks have dealt with in Texas and in other states. And of course, we are just at one state that everybody wants to come to. Yes, we see Americans moving here in record numbers, people visiting here. We're the #1 state for foreign tourism by far in 2021 for all U.S. tourism. But even people across the border, there's a lot that say they want to come to Florida. So our message is, you know, we're not a sanctuary state. We don't have benefits or any of that. There are some sanctuary jurisdictions, and that would be better. Now, what would be the best is for Biden to do his damn job and secure the border. All right, I know it's hot, so thank you all. God bless everybody, and go get some air conditioning. Thank you.
I kept moving back. I see my head under the